We are pleased to welcome back again Dr. Jeanette Betancourt is Senior Vice President of U.S. Social Impact at Sesame Workshop, founded in 1969, a great organization dedicated to
helping children grow up smarter, stronger, and kinder as a nonprofit educational organization.
You've been with them for over 20 years.
Over 20 years, yes.
Doing really important things. Jeanette, you've joined us so many times talking about children and media and the role of parents. Family engagement.
Right.
Someone says, well, media is a tool. You've always said media is a tool. It's a tool. How can parents be a part of that?
It's critical. So it's tools around media are all around us, everything from ebooks to television to apps. But these are only tools to really guide children's learning or experiences. And adults, especially parents, have a critical role in it. And more it's being called co-engagement.
Co-engagement. Explain it. Break it down.
Co-engagement is really the idea that I'm experiencing just as I would with a book. I'm doing it through media. So if it's an ebook, it's an app, it's a digital game, we can experience it together, particularly in early childhood.
So it's so interesting. Our daughter, Olivia, asked me to watch a show with her the other day. I'd like to say it was on PBS, but it happened not to be.
Okay.
It usually is, but this wasn't. And I was like, why is she watching this show? What's it about? And I was tired and didn't really want to, but I sat there and as I was watching it, I was curious as to how she was reacting to certain things. And I paused and I said, well, what's going on here? And I listened to her explain. Believe it or not, it was this, well, going into it, was this one girl who played twins. And one was a sporty girl, one was an athletic, one was into fashion. And I said, tell me about it. She told me this whole thing about it. I would never have known, the point of this is, I would never have known how she was experiencing this series and those characters if I hadn't talked to her, and I realized it.
Absolutely.
I think that's what you're talking about.
Absolutely, and also, not only that, that was a parenting moment, because you were sharing
She forced me into it.
Well, you forced each other a little bit,
Yeah, but
right?
I knew it was,
and you enjoyed it.
She needed it.
You can tell by the way you're smiling that you truly enjoyed it, because it was a sharing experience, and sometimes we look at media in a way that it's very singular. It's only me in that experience. But you just described the way that we talk about it, experience it together. But even more important with young children, remember, we're developing their experiences, how they talk about things, how they experience things, and adults are just guiding that as well. And being part of that as a parent, it's really critical.
Thought about asking questions?
It's a lot about asking questions, but experiencing the fun together, because often media is fun as well. And you are experiencing just as you would everything together as a family. And looking at media for that way actually increases the impact of educational media, well-used media, and as well as the parenting moments.
And experiencing diversity or learning about diversity through media, critically important.
Oh, of course. Media opens up. That's the way Sesame began. When we started Sesame Street on PBS, it was opening the world, experiences that children around the country had not seen, places and experiences.
People
and
who didn't look like them.
Yes, people who did not look like them, including our Muppets.
Right.
So our Muppets represent different sort of characteristics and personalities. And then there's also people around them that were also diverse.
You know, you talked about the impact of our teachers on early childhood. Talk about that.
It's critical. I mean, the first entry into education is generally in a preschool setting. It is with preschool educators. And more we're knowing the importance of that, setting the foundation, not only in terms of what we call the academics, language, literacy, reading, math, science exploration, like we just heard, but also social emotional development. Children are learning the way that they communicate, the way they listen, persevere, and the teacher, and often an assistant teacher, are facilitators of that for a group of children and also individually.
You know, as we think about children, there's this huge academic piece, excuse me, but the emotional and psychological and social piece of it. How do we teach teachers to even begin to understand and be prepared to deal with those issues, or do we say those issues are for those professionals?
Well, what's interesting is that teachers, especially early childhood teachers, are often emphasizing the social emotional. They're often saying that is almost a basic foundation before we get into the more academics. In other words, young children need to experience the idea of persevering, of dealing with frustration, of what we call executive function, learning to hold back or listen and follow through, memory. All of those things are foundations for all the learning. And teachers, I believe, are very much in favor of knowing that they have to balance both.
So, I've thought about this. So if you see a kid in an early childhood situation who is particularly aggressive, and we've seen them, and I always wonder, like, why can't that kid's, I'm not going to call the kid a bully because the kid's 5 or 6 or whatever, and you're like, what does the kid know? But the kid's very aggressive, physical, in other kids' faces, and I think, why can't the parents just deal with that? And I think, okay, well, you don't know the situation.
Right.
What does a teacher do, and how do we teach teachers to deal with that?
Often, those are called challenging behaviors. Sometimes children experience that often, and sometimes all children experience some type of temper tantrum or issues. And I think you brought up two things. One, we have to find out why that challenging behavior is occurring, especially if there's a pattern. Whether it's bullying, acting out, having temper tantrums. Often what teachers can do and often do is they look to see, is there a consistent pattern? What can set off that behavior? And then look at the skills that may be lacking. So often in bullying or such situations, it's not about the physical behavior, it's that maybe that child is not able to communicate effectively his or her feelings, or able to set up friendships and know the steps to do that, or is acting out the behavior that rather than using the words.
Or if maybe you've seen it at home.
That's another factor.
And also, that teacher has to help other kids understand what's going on and how to deal with that as well.
I think it's also communicating whenever you're seeing those challenging behaviors, communicating with parents as well. What's happening? Is this also happening at home?
Every time you come, we learn important things. I want to thank you.
Thank you.
And you're part of a larger panel discussion we're having on this subject, these subjects about teaching teachers. Thanks so much. Appreciate it. Stay right there. We'll be right back right after this. Thank you, Jeanette.
The preceding program has been a production of the Caucus Educational Corporation, celebrating over 25 years of broadcast excellence, and 13 for WNET, NJTV, and WHYY. Funding for this edition of Caucus New Jersey has been provided by the PNC Foundation, the New Jersey Education Association, JFK Medical Center, Delta Dental of New Jersey, the Healthcare Foundation of New Jersey, the New Jersey Chamber of Commerce, and by Verizon. Transportation provided by Airbrook Limousine, serving the metropolitan New York, New Jersey area. Caucus New Jersey has been produced in partnership with TriStar Studios.